Tonight, America's sovereignty is facing a monumental challenge. Over the weekend, you witnessed hundreds of so-called asylum seekers rushing the fencing along our southern border. They attempted to make an illegal crossing by force, hurling rocks, bottles, and other projectiles at our U.S. Border Patrol agents, and they were rebuffed with non-lethal tear gas. This is the crisis, yes, we have been warning you about, and it's about to get much worse. Now, many on the left are demonizing Border Patrol agents. Why? For protecting themselves and our country against what is blatant lawlessness. Some are accusing them of launching chemical weapons attacks, and others literally calling them terrorists, others comparing this to the Holocaust. We have all the madness. We'll call out the left's ignorance, pathetic political posturing on what is a very serious issue. We'll also show you what's really going on at the southern border. DHS Secretary Kristen Nielsen, she'll join us exclusively tonight. Plus, huge news tonight, Jerome Corsi and Paul Manafort refused to go along with the narrative lies of Robert Mueller. This is huge. We will explain why. And also tonight we will preview tomorrow's special election. This is important in Mississippi. The outcome there will determine the future of the U.S. Senate. Also, we'll take you live tonight. President Trump's rally is coming up in a few short minutes. First, it's time for our breaking news opening monologue. All right, as you're watching our monologue, think about these three simple questions. Do we, as a constitutional republic, do we have the right to sovereignty? Do you believe in borders? Do you believe we have a right to protect those borders, protect our sovereignty? Now, for weeks, we've been warning you about the looming crisis at our southern border. Now, at least 5,000 migrants have already arrived in the Mexican border city of Tijuana, with thousands more still on the way. Now, they're all demanding entry into the U.S., most under an asylum designation. But over the weekend, we saw several hundred of these so-called asylum seekers. Look at what they're doing. They're rushing the U.S. border. They're hurling rocks, bottles, other objects over the fencing. 3 Border Patrol officers were struck. We have broken windows, damaged vehicles of Border Patrol. In order to protect the border and themselves, U.S. Border Patrol agents fired non-lethal tear gas to disperse the mob of migrants trying to break across by force. Earlier today, Border Patrol Chief Carla Provost, she described this tense and this scary situation. Take a look.
Our agents were being assaulted. A large group rushed the area, and they were throwing rocks and bottles at my men and women, putting them in harm's way, as well as other members of the caravan. We needed to disperse the group, and with that assaultive nature, it was imperative that we disperse them from the area.
So it wasn't because they seemed to be running toward the United States. It was because they were hitting your Border Patrol with rocks and bottles?
Yes, sir, they were.
And meanwhile, over fake news CNN, San Diego's Chief Border Patrol agent Rodney Scott had this to say about those who rushed the border. Take a look.
Explain the decision to use the tear gas, because that is one question I think people have this morning.
So one of our primary missions is to make sure that we keep the border safe and secure. I kind of challenged that this was a peaceful protest or that the majority of these people were claiming asylum. We ended up making about 42 arrests. Only 8 of those were females, and there were only a few children involved. The vast majority of the people we're dealing with are adult males. Similar to what we saw the first wave of the caravan that came up about a week or so ago, the group immediately started throwing rocks and debris at our agents, taunting the agents. So once our agents were assaulted and the numbers started growing, we had 2 or 3 agents at a time initially facing hundreds of people at a time. They deployed tear gas to protect themselves and to protect the border. If they were truly asylum seekers, they would have just walked up with their hands up and surrendered, and that did not take place.
And just a few moments ago on the story, Chief Scott also had this to say about the migrants. Let's take a look.
We took this caravan very serious from day one. It's like no caravan we've ever seen before. You've heard reports that caravans happen all the time. That's true, but not caravans that have a propensity for this type of violence and not these massive numbers of people.